Okay, now we're going to move on to our corporate resources panel. And Rich Jones, who's the Chief Veteran Officer, former Army Ranger, is going to be our panel moderator. And we have Tom Murphy from Fordham University, Harry Wingo from Google, and a Navy SEAL veteran, Lance Drucker of Penn Mutual. They're all coming up now. Steve Robinson of Prudential Financial, who's a U.S. Army veteran, right over here, coming up right here. And we have Brian Rivera from the City, who's a Marine Corps veteran.
Scott, thank you very much. With all this talking today, right? So listen, first and foremost, I want to thank all of you for everything that you've done to date. You should be very proud. Take stock of where you've been and all the accomplishment that's taken place in your lives to date, and just be proud of that and take stock of that. Don't overlook it. I know that at this point, transition is always difficult. You know, it's always we say it's always darkest before the dawn. So, thank you. And what I'd like to accomplish with this wonderful and esteemed panel is a couple things. It's the 3 E's. We're gonna educate, empower, and ultimately get you employed. So that's what our goal is. And we got a couple of topics we're gonna cover. And this is going to be, looking beyond just the formal interview process. You've gotten a lot of information that gives you information, specific tools to help you with your career search. And I would suggest to think of this more broadly as a life plan, and probe yourself to determine the things, your skill sets, what it is that you want to do for the old thing that hangs. So when you go when you go to at Fort Benning, before they cut your hair, in the old area there, it said, today is the first day of the rest of your life, right? As the guys walk out after they're getting their head shaved. So think of this as that moment, right? Because I think you're going to get some really great information to help you process through, where, get the compass out and get that azimuth. And so that's what I'm hoping to be able to do with this panel. So the first question, and I'll just set it up, put it in context. We've had discussion, we all know, so veterans are exceptional individuals who have served our country and uphold the highest ethical standards and strive to do important work that makes a tremendous difference to our country. Mike Haney's institute, the Institute for Veterans and Military Families, has done a study, and it makes a very compelling business case for hiring veterans. And it states that veterans are just simply more productive, creative, and reliable than their civilian counterpart. So with that as sort of a backdrop, and the question to the panel, Brian, we'll start with you. The question is, how do you think veterans can be most effective in using their skill sets to either get a job initially or internally within the organization to further their careers? And I know the work you're doing within City, with the outreach you're doing at colleges and universities. If you want to share with us some of your best practices and thoughts for the audience.
Okay, hi, my name is Brian Rivera, and to answer his question is, at City, we actively pursue veterans. We certainly put forth a lot of effort to make sure we attract veterans. Take myself, for example. I retired from the Marine Corps in 2011, and I was sent an email from the Department of Labor, because there was a veteran that worked there. And they invited me to VALS, what's called the Veterans on Wall Street Career Fair. And when I went to this career fair, and I approached all the different companies, and I talked to City, of course, and within 2 weeks, I got a call from City to come in for an interview, and then within 2 weeks after that, I was hired. So that showed me how serious City was about recruiting its veterans. Currently, I work in campus recruiting, specifically for the markets division. And a lot of times I'm being given resumes from some of my counterparts, from veterans that they want me to translate because, they can't quite, I guess, decipher what's on the resume. And a lot of times there are other divisions where they're coming to me asking me if there are any avenues that I know of where I can offer some of the jobs that they have available to veterans. So they try really hard to attract veterans. One of the questions when you apply on our website, one of the questions that you have to that is asked to you when you apply for a specific position is, are you a military veteran? I mean, we want to make sure that that's one of the first things we want to know about you, if you are. Some of the things that we participate in, some of the events that help veterans, we have the MBA Veterans Conference that we attend in Chicago every year, where we try to network with veterans and try to actively, hire veterans and pursue them. We also have fellowships that we grant to veterans as well. But yeah, since I've been here, which has been a short while, I've been here for 8 months. There's been a lot of veterans events that we have hosted and that we have participated in. It's because City is really taking a very a serious effort in attracting veterans. So yes, the best thing you can do is just network, try to find out what events are taking place in your area, see what companies are actively pursuing veterans, and do your best to attend all these networking sessions, all these events. And that's going to certainly, and at least from City's perspective, that's going to put you, that's certainly going to give you put you in a better position to get a job here with City.
Brian, thank you. Steve, I know you've done a lot of thought leadership around this, matching skill sets with the need in the marketplace, and that translation of the skill sets. And you've done so much at Prudential. You might want to share some of that work and how that's benefited not only Prudential, but I think the broader veteran advocacy community.
Sure. So Prudential sees veterans as a talent acquisition. We don't want to hire you because you served. We want to hire you because you're a talent acquisition, and you're going to help our company do the things it does in the business world. And when we focus on it as a business proposition, it's good for us, it's good for you, it's good for the bottom line of the company, and the charitable part, or the part where where some people hire because you served, it takes care of itself. We have lots of programs inside of the company that we're working on. I'm the Vice President of External Veterans Affairs. I help create programs inside and outside of the company that make us more veteran friendly. Some of the things we do to make it a soft landing for you, obviously we have affinity groups like everybody does, but we also train our managers and our hiring managers to understand the value of veterans. We have training that they take to help them understand and demystify veterans. There's a lot of misinformation about veterans, that all veterans come home broken, or all veterans have PTSD, or all veterans this or all veterans that. We train our managers and our hiring managers to understand who you are, where you've served, and what your value is. Also, along with that, we did a groundbreaking survey to help us understand what the most pressing and unmet needs are for veterans, and what are the challenges. That helped us to understand not only for our company what we needed, but we shared that information with our friends, with the government, and with others. So those are just a few of the things that we do. I would say the biggest thing to take away from this event that you're doing today, as a tip that you can walk out of here with, is when you are interested in a company, find someone that works in that company or in that career field and connect with them. I'm on LinkedIn, my peers are on LinkedIn, Prudential's on social media. Find people in the company that you're interested in and talk to them about that job. And they can help you with your resume. They can help you with understanding what the job is. So there's a lot of people on the panel, I'll stop there. but there's a lot of things we do as a company to try to think through both an internal and an external strategy. And in my company, we're a little bit different than some in that we have 2 full-time people, 2 vice presidents, I'm one of them, and all we do is veterans activities inside and external to the company. I don't have a secondary job. My job is to help make our company as veteran-friendly as possible. And my counterpart, his job is to create opportunities for veterans inside the company. So that's one of the ways we do it.
Now, Tom, I'm going to skip you, not because I don't love you, but because I think there's a natural flow, as we found out this morning, in terms of Edge for Vets. So, Lance, from your perspective, I mean, our conversations, your perspective, and the, I'll call it the eat what you kill world, right? Of a small business having to go out there, and I think it would be important because not everyone is going to work in a Fortune 500 company, and it may be the case that you run your own business as an entrepreneur, or that you work in a very opportunistic sort of entrepreneurial environment in a small business. And I think, Lance, your perspective on that, just to make sure they understand how their skill sets may fold nicely into that world.
Thank you. My name is Lance Drucker. I own Drucker Wealth Management, which is a wealth management firm here in the city. And I'm here really representing Penn Mutual, which is one of our partner companies. Which is one of our partner companies. And I was thinking about this earlier. I'm really a small business owner. I have 6 people on my team. And I don't represent a big corporation. I'm not Prudential. I'm not Google. But 50% of the people employed in this country are employed by people like me, small business owners. And the best story I can tell you is about this young man sitting in front. His name is Matt DeBonis. He was a corporal in the United States Marine Corps. And about a year ago, I was looking for a new person on my team. And I was looking for somebody who had military background. Not because we need the military background for what we do, but I'm involved, and I never served, unfortunately. It's probably better for the military that I didn't, for a lot of reasons. But, I think, we all know freedom's not free. So I have a big Jones on people who served, and all the organizations I'm involved with revolve around that. So I was looking for somebody who had military experience. And Matt came to us, and Matt did not have, didn't go to college. He enlisted in the military during wartime. And I was really looking for somebody more as a personal assistant. And he came in, and I heard somebody talking earlier about becoming an investment banker, looking to get a job as an investment banker. And that's great, but I think about all the kids in my son's fraternity. Everyone in the fraternity wants to be an investment banker. Out of 30 guys in his fraternity, or in his class, you know how many guys are going to end up being an investment banker? Half of one. So, you have to think from where do I need to start and what strengths do I have? So Matt came, and when I was interviewing him, I said, why you? I mean, already, you're a Marine, so right off the bat, you're halfway there. But why you? And he says, I get the mission done, whatever it is. And if I don't know how to get it done, we'll figure it out, or I'll look for help. And that's really, as an employer, what I was looking for. And what has happened in the last 12 months, which is absolutely incredible, Matt has moved on and taken on more responsibilities to the point that he's really less of an assistant and more of an integral member of my staff. So it's not where you start, it's where you end. The other thing about education, Penn Mutual sponsors the, I wrote it down because I don't remember, the Veterans Center at the American College, which is, the American College is a financial services, it's the oldest financial services educational institute in the country. And they sponsor scholarships. So Matt got a scholarship to become a paraplanner, which is akin to being a paralegal for an attorney. So I guess it's starting, you need to know the value that you bring to a potential employer. And I mentioned this earlier, that this concept of completing a mission and working within a team environment. These are all things that, as an employer, especially from a small business standpoint, those are the people you want to have on your team. For me, somebody who served was just getting them in the door. But beyond that, I think you said earlier, it's not a matter of just, I served, it's a matter of, are you going to benefit the firm? Are you going to help grow the company? And in my particular situation, that's exactly what Matt has done.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, Lance. Harry, if you can, with all that you've got going on at Google, and knowing the value that these young men and women bring to the organization on so many levels to add value for your customers and for your shareholders, you want to describe all the things that you guys are doing and how those skill sets are relevant and applicable.
Thanks, Rich. Absolutely. Just want to thank everybody again for your service. And at Google, we're doing a lot of what has been mentioned already to try and tap into the unique skill sets that each of you have. And I run a program that's trying to bring more military veterans into Google. And so, the outreach side of that is important for Google because I think, unfortunately, it just hasn't been a name when people think about what type of job do I want, what company am I thinking about when I make the transition. And so just getting the word out is critical. We had an event in the fall, just as an example. We've done a couple of events, but we did one with 300 MBAs. MBA Veterans was the name of the conference in Chicago. So 300 folks, great platform to meet some folks going through the graduate school experience. And I had a chance to do a lunch keynote and talk to all 300 people. Can't say how many veterans came up after and said, I didn't know that Google was a place I could consider. As far as a unique skill set, what we're working on is that we have veterans at Google, and so we know that vets go in any number of directions after they leave. Not everybody wants to do the same thing. Steve told a really compelling story earlier today about how his first job out, he did something that was really similar to what he'd done in combat arms when he was serving, and then he ended up doing something completely different. And this is different, but he had those skills. And you hear it a lot. You hear people say, and it's important, there's a reason why, your perseverance, your ability to deal with ambiguity, right? Your ability just to get the mission accomplished, like Matt, the bonus is doing with Lance. All those things are critical, but you also have to think about, am I going to do something that's similar to what I'm doing? And we can help you with that at Google, especially if you're in IT. If you're thinking about something that's kind of tech related, or you want to go in that direction. Or if you want to change completely, you still want to think up, what is something that I did that makes a connection and makes it easy for the employer to make the connection to my unique skill set. I heard in the last session the idea of the intelligence community come up, and someone was saying, I looked at, the example of tying together small amounts of money and, like making a pattern. Well, if you're looking to move into Silicon Valley or Silicon Valley here, start talking in terms of big data. So you've got unique skill sets. The question and the challenge, I think, how you can most effectively use your unique skill sets to make the transition is start speaking the language and figure how you're going to translate it, right? So you've really done amazing things in the life, where you were. Now you're going to make the transition, and if you want to apply a certain set of those unique skills, there's definitely a way to go about that. One other quick point that doesn't always come up, I'd want to say one of the most unique things that you all have is the ability to deal with adversity, right? You know how to walk a path, and not only walking it by yourself. I mean, hard part about making the transition is to go from everything as a we and going into an I mindset. That's hard. But don't drop completely, your team spirit, the ability to focus on the mission, to help others around you. And there's so many opportunities to do that now. You're further along than others who haven't even started the journey out of the military. And we all are making transitions. Even those of us who have been out for a while, we're still making a transition. We're still making a transition. So all I'd say is you've got the unique skill sets, but the perseverance, and then also the resource of yourselves. You know how to get over some obstacles that others would not have. And the other thing that you know how to do on the team side of things is you know how to ask for help. Don't forget that. I've made those mistakes, figuring, okay, I'll just kind of go straight through, or you don't want to ask for help. You have no idea where other folks are, and just making sure that you're using your resources. You're there for your buddies when they need you. They'll be there for you, and so I think that unique skill set is going to help you make the transition as well.
Thank you very much, Harry. Tom, last but not least, and Tom, when we have the discussions about all the work that you're doing at Edge for Vets and up at Fordham University. And, the translation of the skill set to, put it in, operationalizing that, and the holistic approach to making all that happen, the how. So it'd be very, very informative, instructive if you could just describe, from your research what you're doing.
No, it's great to run the anchor leg on this because we've heard about how businesses want to hire you. They want to hire you, they want to hire vets for the leadership strengths, as they say. But by the same token, and their studies show this, that the businesses are saying they need you to be able to translate those strengths into their language, or as Harry said, you've got to speak their language. Meaning you got to, as Harry said, picking up on your point, you have to go from talking about we to I. And I think one of the real striking things listening to Mike talk today about that Marine who was an excellent Marine, and then he went into the job interview, if you remember the story, and he kept talking about, well, we did this, we did this, we did this, and then he didn't get the job because the guy said, well, he couldn't tell us what he was doing. The point is that what that Marine had was this incredible asset. What was missing was the translation piece. So what we do with the Edge for Vets program is that's what we are. We're the how piece. We call it an Edge for Vets workshop series because that's what it's all about. Helping the vets, supporting the vets to translate the strengths, the skills from the military service into that language that will then allow you to sell yourself in order to get what you want, which is to get hired and get the job. So it's a process, and the 4 in Edge for Vets means something. And the how process breaks down to 4 steps. First one is vision. Got to get clear about what you want, and we've heard that in the service you don't set out on a mission until you know what the mission is. Well, in this case, with you wanting a job, the mission is you. Okay, that's the I piece. Okay, so got to get clear about what you want. What's your vision? Not what somebody wants for you, but what do you want? And that's part of the process. The second step in Edge for Vets is to take the leadership strengths that you developed in the military, the leadership strengths that everybody says they want to hire you for, and deconstruct those and break those down into 2 parts. So vision, and then the first part of breaking down the leadership strengths is what values did you develop in the military? What strong core values did you develop? And combine those with the third step, which is skills. So you've got vision, then you got values, then you got skills. And if you can get clear about what you want, your vision, get clear about what values you developed in the military, that around duty, dependability, all these things that the businesses want, but be able to put it in their language. Combine that with the skills. What did you do in the military, and what did you get good at on a technical level, but also some of these intangibles that we heard about as well, the adaptability. All of what we do in the workshop series is help you get clear about the vision, the values, the skills, and then the 4th piece is action. And then the action piece is like what we're talking about today. How do you then put all of this, your vision, your values, and your skills into a package to sell yourself, and then make connections with people who can get you in front of the interviews? And all the advice you're getting today is right to the point. Part of your action plan needs to be network. Go out and meet people. And find people who can help you. So just putting a final point on it, what the Edge for Vets workshop series seeks to do is to help you develop a proposal for yourself, if you will, as to how you can sell yourself to get what you want. And then finally, when you do that, we let you become mentors yourself and help other vets coming along behind you. So it's a full circle.
We're talking about once what are the things that you're going to do that are translatable over, but once you're there. The question is for the panel, what are the programs, the training programs, mentoring programs that are best practices within your companies that exist to help onboard veterans and help them be part of the culture? Because, as your point, this has been the theme of of we, going from we to I back to we or I, and how do you help folks make that transition and feel part of the culture so that they can be actualized? I guess we'll start out this time, Harry, if you wouldn't mind. Google has a powerful culture. If you want to describe what you guys are doing best practice-wise.
Sure. Thanks, Rich. So at Google, we have an affinity group, and you've heard a lot about companies, and these are veterans internally. Can't say how helpful that is, because when you're getting there and you arrive, it's great to connect up with other veterans, and so that helps with making the transition and getting used to what the specific culture is. Although frankly, we're working to try and help with that transition even before you show up to Google. In fact, it's going to be important on the pipeline in. That's going to be part of what helps possibly give that extra edge, or if it's a real close call. Sometimes culture can be, or not understanding it before you go in could be something that holds you back. But once you arrive, making sure that we're pairing up with folks, and Google VetNet is our internal group, and we're actually broken down into squads. So we have a track squad, we have a recruit squad, we have esprit de corps, which is one of the things where like having events, happy hours, just kind of getting together and having fun. But that's important because in those gatherings, then you have a chance to try and you can connect with people on a different level, and then also just making sure that you're leveraging that as much as possible. I think personally that we compare best practices companies do on the recruiting side. One of the things that I found that we did an event in North Carolina, and yes, we did a presentation, but my colleague Sean Washington, a Marine, he and I decided to take out a bunch of the folks, and we just went and grabbed some beers, and the beers and the appetizers were on us, and we just kind of hung out. And I think it was something that was a different setting. So it wasn't just us presenting, and it wasn't just folks like listening and taking notes or asking questions. We just got some wings and some beer afterwards, and I think that was a familiar setting. And I can't say how many more questions and candid, things, or even concerns, things people were worried about came up. And I think making sure you do that on the other side, we're doing that at Google once you get in to try and make sure help vets develop.
Thank you, Harry. Steve, you've led the way with work at Prudential. Maybe you want to describe some of the best practices and models that you've seen work well and haven't worked well, and give your thoughts on how that helps folks get acclimated.
One of the things we did immediately upon really formalizing our veteran policy and strategy was to conduct a survey. And the survey that we conducted that you can view online was the first of its kind survey that asked veterans what they thought the challenges to employment were. And one of the findings of the survey was that veterans who are transitioning out of the military, coming into the civilian world, are expecting that companies will provide to them the same level of support, guidance, infrastructure, everything that you got in the military. In the military, you had a squad leader. You had a team leader, you had a platoon sergeant, there was somebody to go to. If you were deficient in training, somebody came and corrected that. If you needed something, somebody gave it to you. Whatever you needed, they helped you with. And unfortunately, in the civilian world, most companies don't have that type of program. They expect you to come to the company with certain attributes and certain capabilities. And so those things that you have been trained to rely on aren't necessarily there for you when you get out. However, companies that build veteran affinity groups provide for you that friendly face, that person who at 3 o'clock in the morning in Afghanistan, freezing your you-know-what off, has been in through that shared suffering and that moment where you look at each other and laugh. Well, they're the same person at Prudential now, that they can tell you about what's going on with the company culture. So one of the things we do is a really strong veteran affinity group. We want to pair you up with somebody in, not necessarily in the job field unless that's what you want, but somebody in the company that understands the company culture. Every single one of you knows that when you meet another veteran and you look that person in the eye, there's an unspoken bond. All I got to do is know what branch of service you are, when you served, and I know what you did. And there's that unspoken bond between us that doesn't exist often between others that haven't served. And so when you come to the company, hook up with the veterans that are in the company, because it's kind of like still having the same connections in the military. Build those networks. So that's one thing we do. We also train our managers, our hiring managers, to be culturally competent. What I mean by that is I heard a story, your story, about going to the company, not feeling like it was a good fit. You didn't really get the sense that that was the place you wanted to be. We don't want that to happen to you, and I'm sure none of these other companies do. So when they create their programs, they try to make it a soft landing, an onboarding, a purposeful onboarding process for veterans to hook you up with veterans. And every single one of these companies does it. Another thing that we do, just like Harry said, was we get together and we do things as veterans. One of the things I do is I manage Prudential's philanthropy. $6.2 million, 10 different nonprofits. I also do a lot of money for thought leadership, and we're members of the Joining Forces Initiative, or with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, or if it's got something to do with veteran, we're doing it. And so that provides opportunities for our employees to get linked up with some of these organizations we support. We've worked with IAVA. You know, we try to connect, and those are the most important things we can do, is to create the culture at Prudential so that when you get there, you know that you've come to a place where you're going to be comfortable. And the same thing occurs with our non-veteran people who come to the company. Prudential is a diverse company. They have lots of diversity programs. Veterans are the most diverse of all the diversity groups. Even though we don't think of ourselves as a diversity group, we represent every group. Veterans, as a group, represents every group. So those are some of the big things you can do, and that's what we try to do in our company.
Steve, thank you. Brian, with your experience, again, and I'm not forgetting about you guys, but in terms of the formal programs that exist, because it can be a mind bender, and you can get lost, right? Especially after you're used to, sort of, as Steve described, when you're used to such command and control over every aspect of your life, and that becomes part of your language and your culture, to go to, and Harry had mentioned it in the previous panel, which is where you have sort of a situation where you don't have, a top-down model, right? It can be many different shapes. So, these type of programs are critical to help you get acclimated, so perhaps you want to describe some of the things that Citi is doing. Again, world-class, unique to what you guys are doing, but I think would be helpful to the group to hear that.
Okay, well, I've been with Citi for a short while. I mean, it hasn't been a year yet. I specifically work for the markets team. Now, there is a diversity team that actively seeks diversity, seeks veterans, and I've worked with them many times. One thing that I've seen is that they either host or they participate in a lot of veterans events, and every time that we're at these events, we're trying to give veterans ideas, tips on how we can make them, even a stronger candidate than they think they are. We try to give them as much information as possible to try to get them in, especially when a lot of us that are out there participating, and representing Citi at these events are veterans. And just to give you an idea of once I got involved with Citi, once I was hired, I noticed the culture is extremely different of what I'm used to in the Marine Corps. In the Marine Corps, as we know, there's a chain of command, especially if you're lower ranking. There's about 4 other people that you have to go through if you want to speak to, the CO, whatever the case may be. In Citi, I've noticed that it's so different where everyone has an open door policy. Here you have analysts, associates, right? You have vice presidents, directors, and managing directors. In many cases, if you're an analyst, you can go to a director or a managing director. They have the open door policy. Not only that, they're willing to help you. They're always reaching out to you, emailing you, asking you if there's anything you need. Even on my team, on the campus recruiting team, it seems like everyone is just so helpful, and they have an open door policy. And I noticed that I'm one of many veterans that exist within the company, and a lot of times they want to get together and they want to team build, and they just They want to let us know, hey, you are welcome here. We're happy that you are here. You're not alone. We know this environment is different. It's not what you're used to, but it's okay. You'll get used to it, and there's plenty of people here that are going to support you and help you get through it. So in terms of specific efforts, I'm not familiar with too many of them. I know there's fellowships for veterans. We have the MBA Veterans Conference that we attend annually in Chicago. We also have the Student Veterans Association. So there are a few out there. But one thing that we do is on our website, we publish a lot of the events, for veterans and the basically a lot of the tools that veterans can use to kind of help them put themselves in a better position to get hired within the company.
Brian, thank you. Lance, I think from the perspective, again, we're scaling from these very large and prominent corporations that have robust programs in place that are there to support veterans, but it may very well be that you are at a smaller company, and I think Lance started to describe this, and so, and I think it's a best practice, how you, with this young man, how that process of onboarding, which is a mentoring program and really an empowering. So, we were talking about educate, empower, employ, right? So maybe just flesh out a little bit more, how you envision in terms of this topic, how that, because I think it is, especially, it's a much more, as I'll refer to as a eat what you kill environment. Not with a lot of resource available, but it's real-time counseling, and it sounds like it's been very, very effective.
Absolutely, it's been a great experience for both of us. And what's interesting, I communicate to my clientele quite often about financial matters, about world matters, about what's happening in my life. And there's actually an article that just came out about Matt and my relationship. And I've had a number of my clients and friends who own small businesses who ask me, how did I come to meet Matt? How did they find their, veteran? Because they understand that every employer, the most important thing to an employer is to have an employee who can operate in a stressful environment. Have any of you been in a stressful environment? As an employer, there are days when the shit is hitting the fan and it looks like the wheels have come off the bus. And what's really important to an employer is everybody keeps calm. No matter what it is, no matter what venue. So I've actually, to a number of my friends who own small businesses, I've given them the resources of where to reach out to. And as I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, my goal whenever I attend a workshop or a meeting, and I was thinking I've sat on a number of different panels, and this is without question the most badass panel that I've ever sat. I have a SEAL on one side, I have a Ranger on another. It's just way cool.
And then another Ranger over there and a Marine.
Yeah, this is just a really kick-ass group. But I was thinking, whenever I attend a workshop, my goal is to walk away with one good idea. A, because I'm not that bright and I really can't get more than that. But B, that's about as good as it gets. And I was thinking, if I'm sitting there and I'm looking for a job, the first thing is quantifying, well, what do I want to be when I grow up? What field? How do you know? I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, and we're doing this for now. So I think there's so many different industries, and one client in particular is a very successful packaging company. When you get shampoo, it comes in those little plastic things that come in the mail. His company does that. So I was thinking, if I was sitting there, I don't know if that's what I want to do, but what a great entrance to send, to find out how many packaging companies there are in where you live, and send out a resume and say, hey, here's who I am and here's some of my skill sets. I'd love to come in to speak to you. And you have the resources up here of what to say and how to say it. But one route is going with the big companies. But at the end of the day, there are just so many people that Prudential, I'm actually thinking about coming over to Prudential after listening to you. And there are just so many people that Google and Prudential and Citi can hire. The rest of you are going to be hired by these little companies you never heard of. But how do you find out who they are? Now, I'm not an expert in using Google. I think Harry can explain that. But finding, in different industries, construction, packaging, there's thousands of them. And then send out resumes and become a specialist. I had a couple of people when I was interviewing who came in, and when they sat down, they said to me, what is it that you do? And I'm thinking, wow, I have a website. probably would have been a good idea to look at the website first. Before you go into battle, you want to have a little bit military intelligence. I mean, that's all the books, the wannabe books that I've read. And then getting back to your original question, as far as Matt, my goal with Matt, and we've discussed it, we spent a lot of time together, is I don't know what the goal is. He has his skill sets. I asked him if he wanted to come up or would he feel comfortable speaking, and that's clearly not a skill. Matt being in front of a group is not necessarily a skill set. But on an analytical and preparing reports and the back office stuff, he kills it. So how do we grow Matt into the best person he can be, and where does that end? I don't have any idea. But I know that education is a part of it. So I think once you find what it is that you want to do, then you got to, everything you've heard is this perseverance and adaptability that veterans have, and then it's just becoming educated and smarter about whatever field you're in and grow as far as, and don't go in saying, I want to own the company one day. I mean, that's cool, but you may not. How do you grow within that field? And what educational opportunities are available to you? And what's amazing is just listening to some of these, at Fordham, I'd never even heard of this. What a great opportunity that you have if you avail yourself to it. And we were talking earlier, you were supposed to have twice as many people attend this workshop today. Twice as many people. They registered. What happened? It's like a New Year's resolution. The 3 most popular: lose weight, stop smoking, and save money. And what do you find by November? A bunch of fat, poor people smoking like a chimney. So, you all start out with good intentions, but the fact that you're here today means that you're already part of the follow-up. Now you got to take it to the next step. And, apparently in the military, a lot of things are provided for you. I mean, the downside is you could die. But the upside is you get a uniform and you get the food. It's kind of a big downside. But in the private sector, it's not like that. You have to make it happen.
Great. So Tom, I guess on the continuum, we'll make this, and then we're gonna go to questions. But just in the perspective of, for those folks who may not have the large corporation, the benefit of someone like Matt or Lance, the context of what you're doing with Edge for Vets, just to give that sort of the round out.
I think Lance said something interesting. Often what we find in working with the vets is that the vets will be blocking themselves. This idea of going from we to I, sometimes they're hesitant to talk about themselves and their achievements. They'll tell us because they maybe attach some arrogance to it, that it's arrogant to talk about us, about myself and my accomplishments. But the key thing that's needed is to recognize that the values and the skills that you developed in the military are your greatest asset. The job becomes selling yourself around those. And I think the key to do that, if there is anybody who has a reticence about talking about yourself and your achievements, and again, that's what you have to do to sell yourself. That's the job, to get that person to say yes to you. You have to talk about your achievements. I think the key thing, as we've been hearing, is to research what the company needs and take what you did, your values and your skills, know that about yourself, but be able to express that in terms of what the company needs and what you can do to meet that company or help that company meet its needs.
Point.
And that becomes the key, I think, in the translation process.
Absolutely.
And that, the minute you can do that, take what you're good at, your asset, your values and your skills, and put them in the company's terms, suddenly that sense of arrogance goes away, and now you're in high gear selling yourself, and there's probably not an interviewer alive who's going to reject that.
Absolutely. No, I agree, and that's one thing that I think has been highlighted throughout the day is that, as I said, you need to know who you are, right? And I think it's important. Once you know who you are, the worst thing you can do to yourself is to sell yourself short or not to know your value, right? And each one of you is tremendously valuable, so please know that. And so, once you know that, then you can make the game plan. And I want to pretend that there's a person sitting. I'm going to do a little pitch here for a dear friend of ours, and I wish he were sitting here. We'll get him, but his name is Chad Storley, Storlie. Chad heads up veteran initiatives at Union Pacific Railroad, and I would suggest to you, only because Chad has been a dear friend and is one of the most tireless and passionate veteran advocates, and someone who has, and is everyone, and Harry hammered this home, if you're not on LinkedIn, you need to be. And within LinkedIn, there is a group, it's Combat to Corporate, and this is something that Chad oversees. He's an author. He's got a number of books that I highly recommend. He's got and also what Harry was saying in terms of the use of Google and YouTube. Chad has some wonderful webcasts that have been done that are specific to if you're an 11 Bravo infantry type, he speaks your language. It's taking that and putting it in the business context. So I highly recommend that and I would check out what's on the Union Pacific, as with all of the companies here, but look at all those requirements, because then when you look at the requirements, you go, wait a minute, I could work in the transportation industry. I know about logistics, and that's how you're really going to start to translate your skills, is by going, and that gets the other point. I know it was probably highlighted on the resume section, but you don't just have one resume, right? It's not to say that you're duplicitous and you've got multiple personalities, but it just speaks to the wide range of things that you can do. And don't let people put you in a box, because at the end of the day, broadly define yourself as a problem solver, as a person who can do many things and do them well. And so with that, I just wanted to open it up to the floor for questions for our distinguished panel. Chad Storley, Storlie, and he's at Union Pacific Railroad in Omaha, Nebraska.
Samuel Kim, just first of all, thank you for coming out and speaking to us. Couple things. I think that a lot of us do struggle, and I'd struggle too when I first started interviewing for investment banks, whatever you have, is that veterans do not sell themselves as much. You see that. We do say we, because if you say I in the Army, like, wait a minute, who is this guy? Who is this guy,
Army of one.
Army of one, right? So sometimes you're right. I mean, we try to sell ourselves, and then you're like, wait a minute, we don't sound comfortable, first of all, but do you sometimes wish, on the other side, that you would hear more eyes, that you see the veteran on the other side tone it up even more, then they feel uncomfortable because of the fact that they feel that they sell themselves, but they're not comfortable because, again, it's Army of one. So, I mean, just want to hear that aspect from the panel.
I'll take a stab at that. In the corporate world or in the business world in general, you have to have a personal brand. You can't, I was talking to a gentleman who had a similar career path as me in special operations. He went to SEER school, as I did, and in SEER school, they teach you that when you're interrogated, you're going to be hit with multiple approaches, because the interrogator knows that one cookie-cutter approach isn't going to work. And so the reason I say this to you is you have to know who you're talking to. You have to do your due diligence. You have to recon the objective. You have to make a plan. And you have to speak to their pain. What do they need? Mm-hmm. And you have to talk in terms of what, I wouldn't say only say I, because we really want to know about the we too. We don't want just somebody who's only about me. But they do want to know that you can work independently. They already know you can work as a team. I'll just tell you, at my level, I came in as a vice president and I was expecting to get some guidance, and they just basically said, let us know in about 4 months what you're doing. And I built my programs and then brought them, and they were evaluated. So that seems to be the way this world operates, is that they expect initiative. They expect you to ask for help if you need it. There's help for you if you ask. So I would say a nice combination of both we and I is important. But you are your own best advocate. And I'll just give you an example. What was your MOS?
13 alpha, 25 alpha, so artillery and signal.
So, Ranger and Special Forces. What did I do and what can I do for your company? I've operated in the world's most arduous environments. I've led men and women in both training and in combat. I was responsible for their health, their welfare, their training, their equipment. The equipment that I managed was X amount of dollars. I also utilized the following technology, and you can talk about that. I made decisions that were life and death in a place in which those decisions had geopolitical consequences. I think I can work for you. I can learn. I've constantly had to learn because everything in the military is constantly changing. So I can learn, and any technology or policy or program that you have, I can learn it. And that really is what your value proposition is. That, to me, is the essence of the military experience, is that you bring something to the table that most people don't have, and that's experience in operating in environments. So I would say combination of we and I. Don't focus too much on one or the other, but do your due diligence, and you'll know which one you should talk about.
Can I just add one final point to that? If I'm hearing you correctly, I think it's important not to put the pressure on yourself that it can be done overnight. Nobody goes from a fixed environment into a more fluid environment, which civilian life is, in one step. So it's a process, as Steve is saying, and I think if you could look at it as a process and give yourself the time with it. That's why in Edge for Vets, what we seek to do is run a series of workshops, because there's no silver bullet. It's done over a period of time. And just a point, we do the final workshop in the Edge for Vets series is next Friday. If anybody wants to see me after to see what this process is like, I'd be happy to. We've got a couple of spots left in the session next Friday. Can show it to you. But I would just say that the key is to understand that you have the strengths and to know that and trust that, and then do sessions like this, meet other people, and then just give yourself the time to let it come, and it will.
Sam, I agree with all that too. And another thing to consider on the we to I and like getting out, specifics about you, and this is trickier. This could take more time, as Tom said, is getting other people to tell your I story. And so that means champions, and particularly well-placed champions. And here's the hard part too, because in the military, our culture is just such an open one, right? We're not used to subterfuge and, hidden agendas and politics and all that, but that's the reality of the civilian world. So you're stepping into a world where maybe an analogy might be, think of like court, right? Coin. Okay, yeah, that's even
coin.
better. That's right. That's to what we're comparing with. I was actually thinking of like court, like in intrigue and all that, but coin is exactly right, because you can still hold to your values, but you've got to realize, okay, you're not in Kansas anymore, right? So, and what that means is you've got to adjust, you've got to orient, and the I thing is just one of the first steps, and that's hard for folks. The next level, right, is self-promotion through others. And that's not only champions that you're bringing, and that's actually just bedrock. You've got to have those champions around you who can and that can be as simple as, if you're still trying to get into an area, who are your family members or your family members' friends, folks who've known you since you grew up? Have those letters ready. Do you know who it is that is in the area that you want to be in? Heck, maybe they were CEO of a company, and Aunt so-and-so knows someone. Turns out that they were CEO of a company in the area you want to go into. I went to an event, some wounded warriors. We were helping the USO with something, and there was someone there who just told me he wanted to be a salesperson in the worst way. And because companies talk to each other, I was like, oh my, this kid needs to go to Caterpillar. And Caterpillar is involved here. And it turns out that he was really interested with Caterpillar. And I asked him, well, do you know anybody that works there? Turns out that his father had a best friend who was like, and I said, well, why don't you use that? And I'm not kidding. This goes maybe to like our culture. He said, well, I want to get there myself. And I had a talk with him. I was like, look, you have to change that thinking. And so, that's one way to do it. Here's a simple exercise. I want somebody shared this with me. It's so basic. Yes, LinkedIn. Yes, social. Yes, all those things. But a piece of paper. I want all of you to take a piece of paper tonight or as soon as you can. Speaking of I, put a circle that represents you in the middle, right? And then I want you to put circles of people that you know who are related to where you're trying to get to. Mm-hmm. And folks that you really trust, have known for a long time, how close they are to you on that center of the paper is the strength of that relationship in the coin example. Someone far out there on the edges could be someone you just met. Could be one of us, right? And then draw a line to that person that's close by, someone you trust. It's going to be a really solid line. You can use different colors if you want to. Maybe someone that you're close to, or that you is closer. You've known them for a bit. Maybe the line's not as solid, but you don't know. But you see what I'm saying is, can you put 20 marks on that piece of paper? And are you strategizing? It's details like this that go, you all know how to do this. This is a mission. This is planning it out. But actually going through those steps and applying those unique skill sets you all have, that's an example within this framework. So again, what we've been talking about, we to I, but that's just something I wanted to throw out there about. The other thing is I through other voices.
And the only thing I wanted to mention, Sam, is that I want you guys, and this is not just for your specific question, but I want you to get comfortable with rejecting a premise that doesn't make sense to you. Because you're going to walk into situations, and let's just say that you've got all this tremendous experience, you've got the grades, but somebody tells you, you know what, your GMAT score isn't, sorry, you need to advocate for yourself and say, let me explain something to you. I understand that is a way that you call out sort of, the masses, but let me explain to you what I'm bringing to the table. A lot like what Steve is saying and what everybody has said. You need to advocate for yourself, and it's not impolite to be politely assertive, to make your business case. You have to have it be a yesable proposition, and you don't want people to walk out of the room. And again, it goes back to these old sayings. This is also a basic training. After they give you your uniforms and your haircut, right, and there's the mirror, and then you get one chance to make a first good impression. It's for real, and so just get comfortable with doing that. And part of this is just, and again, this goes back to what we've all said, stay around positive people that support your mission. You don't have time and it's, this is your time to sharpen your skills, sharpen your focus, sharpen your presentation, right? And so, Rich, we're gonna, I came from the same world, right? Green, and but all of these things matter because it's about the other theme, your brand, very important.
Hi, my name is Alexander. I'm a veteran of the United States Air Force, and within the Air Force, there's a big family community there. For instance, my first assignment was in Osan Air Base, South Korea, a different country, not knowing anybody there. Within my first weekend, I had met every single family within my shop, and we all had dinner. Do you find this kind of family congregation within the corporate world?
Yes. And if you're not finding it, you need to reset and think, how can I encourage people or let people know that I'd like to engage? Because when it comes down to it, companies are made of people. Your career is going to be made of people. And so the same way that applied in the military, there's just a civilian version of that out there.
And I don't want to be recorded saying something negative about my company, but I would say that it exists, but you have to seek it out. You've got a role to seek it out. In my company, for example, unfortunately, I work in Washington, D.C. My company is in Newark, New Jersey. So I have to catch my opportunities as I can. But through our affinity groups, we're definitely hooking up that way and creating opportunities to share and get to know one another. And Prudential is a very veteran and family-friendly company, but I haven't had the opportunity yet to experience working at Prudential headquarters. I'm working remote.
I would say seek it out, but if it doesn't exist or you don't find it, make it. Because
absolutely,
I think that's the key. You maybe there's a hesitancy or a reticence about your ability to make it, but blow through that, take that first step, and if it's needed, go do it.
I want to jump in there too, Alexander, and all of you. You can make it even where you are now. And I know SCVA's got a strong tradition of like organizing, and you have events, but I'm going to push Google Plus here. If you're not on Google Plus, that's a place where you can have communities. You should create a circle here. Like each of you should somehow exchange Maybe, Veterans Advantage can facilitate that. But you could create a Gmail circle. And if you're in the city, why not have, throw a barbecue? Find a way to do that. Invite people over to one of the schools, or have musters at, a bar, like have a happy hour Thursdays for vets in the city. Those sorts of things you can create. You can recreate, what was in the military, that sort of culture, and it's up to each of you to do that.
Thank you. Hi, I'm also Alex. I served in the Navy. My question pertains to in an interview, can you oversell yourself? Recently, I just went to a company that flew me out of Georgia. The hiring manager went out of his way to call me. He said, I've never done this before, but I feel like your resume is wonderful, but I need you to go ahead and emphasize more on the manufacturing parts for people that we need in the plant. Finds out I did everything perfectly, but the director of the plant wanted to go ahead and interview me. And it seemed from his vibe was that I was too strong, I was too eager, and I don't care whether you say you're from the city or you live in Jersey, we do everything fast-paced. So, and I like to think of myself, I do what I do by 10 o'clock, most people get done with that by 2, 3 o'clock. So my question is, can you oversell yourself in an interview on your resume, or should you step it back? My other question is, I was just talking about this with my brother yesterday. There was another company that I was interested in. I didn't get the job, but I was thinking of writing them an email saying, I'm really interested in this company. I'd love to work for you. How about, is there any way you could hire me for 2 months free? Because I'm really interested. My brother said no, because that might be a little too eager. But other people I spoke to, my classmates, said, maybe that might not be ideal. So what do you guys think? Thank you.
The working for 2 months, I probably wouldn't do 2 months, but I would definitely do 2 weeks. That was something one summer I told my son. He was looking for a job. And I said, just offer your services for 2 weeks, and if it's not for free, and if it's not working. As a New Yorker, as somebody who has a New York firm, you go in hard. I was explaining earlier that I have 3 to 6 new meetings a week with potential clients. These are affluent, highly successful potential clients. And I'm going to interview with them. They're not interviewing for me. I'm interviewing to get a job with them, meaning I'll manage their financial situation. And I know there have been a number of situations where I come off as too confident, aggressive, cocky, whatever it is, and I just attribute that to the law of numbers, because the people who hire me are looking for that skill set. So as far as your experiences, maybe down south, somebody once said that if I was me down south, I'd be like painting houses or something. So it's good that I'm doing what I do here. So I think it's just a matter of the law of numbers. I don't think you can, unless you're totally arrogant and full of yourself, which I don't get that sense from you. I don't see that as a negative. But the working for 2 weeks for free, it shows your level of commitment. I would see that as a positive.
I don't know the specifics within the VOW Act, but wasn't there an internship component of the VOW Act? Maybe we have to look into that. There was a law passed that provided where veterans could intern at companies, and I don't know if it's fully implemented. I believe you can oversell yourself, and if you come off arrogant, but you need to be oversell yourself in this town. This town's different than Washington, D.C., than Seattle, than Prudential, than Google. So what I'm telling you is know who you're talking to, do your homework. There is no cookie-cutter approach, but you should know who they are. Are they conservative? Are they aggressive? What are they looking for? You don't want to necessarily try to fit yourself into some position that you're not, but you don't want to go in and overexpress yourself when you're talking to a conservative company, for example. So that would be my advice. And there's great books. I swear it's my secret sauce. Maybe one day I'll write about it, but there's a book called Educing Information. Educing Information. And what it is it's a field manual for how interrogations are conducted. And one of the things I did was, as a lot of different things, was interrogation. And you have to know who you're talking to in order to be able to interrogate or get information from them. Now, you don't know this, maybe you haven't thought about it, But this isn't just some random encounter when you're sitting across the table from another company that's interested in talking to you. They're asking you questions that are derived from behavioral health assessments. They're asking you questions about aptitude. They're asking you questions about your potential. They're not just random things. These are things in which they're trying to adduce information from you to determine if you're the fit. So if you don't understand the interview process and what you're going into and what questions are going to be coming at you, that's something that you need to learn too as you go into that process.
Can't underscore enough, Alex, that I agree with what was just said, is that you got to know who you're going to be talking to, and this is where affinity groups can be helpful. So if you know ahead of time, the vets internally or get in touch, then people can't coach you. There's lines as far we can go, but on the other hand, we can give you sort of ideas about who you're going to be connecting with in some ways that may help. The other thing is you may never really know exactly why you didn't get that role. Could have been something else. Could have been some other reason. Could have been someone else who actually had something else for the role. So even though you have that impression, you're playing it back in your head, maybe that wasn't that. The other thing is, and this is something Steve said, is like you don't want to fit yourself into something that you're not. Lance said it too. So one of my favorite quotes is, "Home is where your responses are appropriate," right? And so something about that, like be in a place where you're going to be happy and comfortable, and you can be your New Yorker self. Like maybe it's a good if that was a factor, but you may not be. You may never know if that was really the case. The other thing on interviewing skills, and Steve brought this up, they're skills. Like you want to really practice those as much as you can. There's lots of books, resources online about all those things. But one thing too about keeping a check on, where you might be understood as overselling, is make sure you're really answering the questions in the interview. You have to really, and that takes focus sometimes. Just really, are you providing the right amount of information? Are you doing it the right way? And there are resources to get you coaching on that, including some of what's going to be offered through this program. So I hope that's helpful.
And just sort of summarizing, I think your greatest strength as an I comes from what you did as a we, comes from those military values and skills that you developed as a we. And I think the key in an interview is to know those, that you have those as an I, but express them for the we of what the company needs. So you know your strengths, but you don't have to talk about you as an I. You talk in terms of what the company needs, knowing that you have those strengths that you developed through the military.
Absolutely. And one point I'd make on that is, again, this is where it's like jujitsu, right? Use the energy of the opponent to your advantage. Yes, right? But you're a force multiplier. If you're good at what you do, that's great. But we need a lot of people who are good at what they do, and that's inherent in what you've done in the military. Is that everybody? It's not good enough. It's the weak link principle. So as Harry said, it's a skill, and so you want to make sure that you're able to throw these things back out there and say, wait a second, yeah, there was a team, it was we, but it's force multiplication. What I'm all about is making sure that my coworkers I'm a force multiplier, or my subordinates. I'm going to make sure that they're well trained. If this is all about, if you're an NCO, this is what an NCO does, right? So just techniques to reject the premise, but then keep the conversation flowing and throw it right back and have it be food for thought as they consider. Right?
Rich, thank you so much. Let's have a big hand for the whole panel here. They just did a great job. Thank you so much, guys.